was, yes, let's give my official consent to that. I also then in Angel of Montgomery um, had to reconcile that timing rhythmic deal in every second line.
Right. I forgot
Yeah,
about that. Well, now I remember, but yeah, yeah.
yeah. But I that was what I actually found out that I did was I kind of glossed it over. I sort of made it work where it really wasn't working.
Yeah.
I found out later. I looked at the lesson then after all that
Okay.
and saw why it was the way it was.
Yeah.
That's the three beat. Yeah, it was the three beats on the D
Right.
in the second line. Yeah. So that was actually sort of fun and intriguing in the sense that I also then I looked at the very end the Bonnie Raitt version, which I'm more familiar with as a performance than John Prine's and all, and I sort of barely got into that, um,
Okay.
um, but I got into it far enough to hear that it was in drop D or double drop D.
Just drop D.
Just drop D. Yeah, drop D, and that drop D capoed.
Right.
I think the
Probably
E.
the second, I think, right?
Yeah, and so actually, that became then the sort of the objective. I
Good.
don't know. All I got was that far.
Okay.
I don't know a whole lot about it, but
Yeah. So did you listen to the John Prine piano version very much? What is this?
yeah, not. I didn't listen to it a lot. I
Okay.
listened to it enough so that it was really apparent to me that it was
Yeah.
in G and all that. I mean, you could hear that just from the get go,
Right.
um, without even So that was and had the John Prine the rhythm of the whole thing was um, well he has a number of songs that seem to have rhythms that are it's not just like 1 2 3 4 1. It's not like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's that's that's a challenge for me to get going on it. I can sing it in my head, and I know where the chords go,
Yeah.
but getting between them is something that I I don't do. I just haven't figured out.
Yeah. So there are a lot of songs like this that have varying time signatures. There might just be one measure that's weird in each section or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
And before you probably paid too much attention to it, you could assume that it did something like this. We had a few songs that had the chord change on four like early before the next measure. I can't remember any off the top of my head right now, but do you know remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you've got three beats of one chord, and on beat four it changes. Then usually on beat one of the next measure, you just rest and then finish out that measure.
Yeah.
That would be something like this: 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. And so, Angel from Montgomery can be done just like that. And many people, when they do covers of songs that have these weird rhythmic things, and this is not even that weird. It's just that it's just that for a lot of people they square them up, and it would sound like this. This is the D to the G thing that would happen, and this would be fixing that so that it's not three, but it'll still get back to the G chord after three beats. So we'd have this right: 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. Do, 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 do. Now, you could play it like that, and hardly anybody would say that's wrong, you know, because it sounds right. You got back to the D. But what, of course, really happens is I'll just do one measure of the G's to C's.
Yeah.
What really happens is when you get back to that G, it's beat 1. It's not beat 4, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. You know, and so what you have to do, make sure you do in that case, is do not rest on the beat after 1, because that'll make it sound like you've just jumped beat 4 and skipped beat 1, like you stayed in 4.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like what I did there was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, it's like I got to make sure that I feel what should have been beat 4 as beat 1.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so anyway, I think Bonnie Raitt does that too. I can't remember now. In the lesson, I'm not sure if I talked about whether she may have squared it up.
I think she squared it up.
Yeah, I think she did too. You know, because it's a little more complicated especially for a band to do that. Now, the people in her band are fabulous. They could do it, but a lot of people, people would choose to do that. There's a Joni Mitchell song, Free Man in Paris, I think.
Yeah.
That has a very similar, complicated introduction, and it's kind of off the wall anyway. I don't know if you can hear the song in your head. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I watched a few people when I was doing a lesson on that. One of my students was here a few weeks ago, and she played it for me. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. I couldn't even remember if I had a lesson on it. She says, yeah, your lesson was great. And I thought, wow. And then we watched a minute of it, and I realized I even sang the whole song and everything in that one. It's like I was particularly brave, I guess. But anyway, and but there's this odd timing thing in the introduction, and the introduction is so offbeat that if you messed up the weird timing thing, nobody would know, except Joni and other people who had maybe analyzed it.
Yeah.
And I forget, it was somebody like Sheryl Crow or somebody else. But anyway, covered the song and didn't realize till a long time afterwards that she totally messed it up, and kind of like later on apologized that it's like, oh man, I didn't realize there was only 3 beats in that measure. I just kind of winked anyway. So there are a lot of songs that have those little glitches in them, or sand traps almost. It's like you gotta the Grateful Dead, Uncle John's Band is another one. I don't know if you know that tune very well.
Yeah.
It's got the same thing. Matter of fact, that'd be a real challenge for you to figure out if you want to listen to Uncle John's Band. It's this it opens up with a cool thing. Little lead. Well, the first days are the hardest days. Don't you worry anymore. At least listen to it sometime, and it's quite complicated compared to Angel from Montgomery.
Oh, really? Okay.
But it doesn't use anything out of the key until it comes to a short little instrumental break after 3 or 4 minutes. But anyway.
Huh.
Okay, back to Angel from Montgomery.
Yeah.
Right in the chorus we just use 1, 4, and 5 in the key of G.
Yeah.
Sorry, in the verse.
In the verse.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in the chorus, it effectively changes the set of 3 chords that it's using for at least the first 2 lines. In the 3rd line or the 4th line, whatever it is.
4th line goes back to
right. Okay, so it's 3 lines that have the change, and there's a couple different ways we could look at that change, because now we're using 3 chords that go together all the time.
Yeah.
Right. But not in the key we're in.
We're in. Yeah.
So we could consider that it's changed keys to what key?
To C.
Yeah. So now it's used now. So the 3 chords that we have in G.
Yeah.
And I think we touched on this a little while ago. That if I only take 2 of those chords, if I take G and one of the other chords, in this case G and C,
mm-hmm.
they're also in the 3rd chord that goes with them in the key of G is D.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also in the key of C, where C is 1 and G is 5.
Right.
And so the other 3rd chord is not D anymore, it's F.
Right.
And then G and D, 1 and 5, are also in the key of D,
Yeah. Okay.
where they're 1 and 4. D is 1 and G is 4.
Right.
And so the third chord that fits with that in the key of D is what?
It would be E.
Not quite. In the key of D,
Fits with that.
right. In other words, what would be the third major chord in the key of D? Where again, in the key of G, it's G, C, and D.
Right.
In C, it's G, C, and F.
Right.
Now in D, we've got D as 1 and G is 4.
Right.
So 5 would be what?
It would be A.
Yeah. Okay, so got big trucks rolling by here. Um, those two other chords, F and A,
Yep.
are the two most common chords that get used in songs that are outside the key. Those are like the go-to, the other major chords that you see, and it's because they're in the other two keys that are very closely related.
Okay.
So see again, the key of G has 1 sharp in it. The key signature for G is 1 sharp,
Right.
and so the key signature for C is none.
Right.
Okay, so they're very close in terms of scales. They're only 1 note different.
Right. Right.
And G and D have the same relationship because D is 2 sharps. It's like 1 sharp the other way. It's got an extra sharp, right? So
Right.
so those two keys, whatever key you're in, if you're in the key of X,
Yeah.
the keys of chord 4 and 5 in there are neighboring keys always.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, and so that's why it's so on one hand we could say this section has changed to the key of C.
Yep.
But do we ever feel like C is home? When it comes to a C chord there, does it feel like you can stop there?
No.
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 So
No.
so this is not what we would consider then a modulation or a changing of keys, because G still feels like it's home, even
Right.
though now we're using G, C, and F.
Yeah.
So how we would define that or describe it is we've changed scales, we've changed modes. We're not in a major key anymore.
Okay.
We're using chords from the key of C, but C is not feeling like home, like the tonic.
Okay.
G is. It'd be the equivalent of playing a G scale. Here's my G major scale, right? With F sharp in it. Now if I play that scale with F natural instead, it's gonna at first sound like a mistake. Well, that is clearly not a G major scale. It's the
Right.
notes from a C scale, but starting and ending on G.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay? So it's a different mode. And that this is what modes are, is using notes from one key, but having something other than one be home.
Okay.
Have we talked about this a little bit?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. A little bit.
So
Yeah.
so in this case, this is exactly what we're doing is we're playing the notes from we're using the notes from C, but we're treating G, which is step 5, as home.
Okay.
This is the definition of what's called the Mixolydian mode.
Okay.
So the Mixolydian scale is on the same level as like a major scale. It's a different arrangement of whole steps and half steps from a major scale.
Okay.
And it's actually the set of notes we get the same way a major scale is based on C to C, no sharps and flats.
Right.
A Mixolydian scale is based on G to G, no sharps and flats.
Okay.
And so that changes it only changes where one half step is. Because I still have a half step from G 3 to 4, G, A, B, C. See, this sounded like a major scale until I hit note 7. So it ended up having a half step at 6 and 7
Uh-huh.
instead of 7 and 8.
Okay.
And so it sounded fine until I hit the second to the last note, the F natural. But that's exactly what that's a Mixolydian scale. That's what it sounds like. It's not a mistake. It's just that it's one note different from a major scale.
So could you, or are all of the other modes, including the minor scale, is just another mode, right?
Exactly.
Okay, but the minor scale then is starting on A, no sharps and flats.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
so. So
And
is that then? Are all the modes defined that way then?
all seven of them are tied to one of our seven notes, and the pattern we get by playing from that note to that note with no sharps and flats.
No sharps and flats.
So there are seven different modes because all seven of our notes could be the starting point.
Yeah,
All seven of our natural notes, the white keys,
yeah,
and every one will put the two half steps in a unique
yeah,
pair of places.
yeah, yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
And so the minor so actually they all have Greek names. There are seven names for these, and what we now call major, the modal name for it is Ionian.
Yeah.
And the what we call minor is Aeolian.
Right.
But the other five still only use their Greek names. It's kind of like those were the two most common, or the two that evolved into the most useful, and so they sort of got christened major and minor.
Okay.
And without going too far into all of them, I mean, if you want to delve a little deeper into this, we could make this as thick as you want. But right now, but there are really only two other ones besides major and minor that are common, and Mixolydian is one of them. To tie up Angel from Montgomery, that's basically what's happened here. Is it's switched modes, still using G as home, but is switched out of a G major scale into a G Mixolydian scale.
Okay.
And that's why it sounds a little different. That's what that F chord does here.
That's what the F chord does. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'll put this in the somehow I want to understand this, but not right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not this way. So somehow in the development of Western music,
That's probably the best term.
the
Yeah.
major and the minor became major and minor.
It is survival of the fittest, or something.
Okay, and so if I went back to classical music, would I find this in Beethoven and Bach and all that era?
Um, Actually, earlier, more in Renaissance music, you'd hear more of this. I mean, you'd hear more things in other modes, or songs that changed modes. Like they really hadn't settled on this by the 15th century. I mean, it really evolved more in the late Renaissance and early Baroque time. This is and Bach was the end of the Baroque period. And so he was, because right pretty much when he died in 1750, his Baroque music died with him, and they went in a whole new direction. 30 years later, it was Mozart and Haydn and Beethoven. And one of the reasons that it died, so it was considered when Bach died. Not to not go too far into this, but Bach died relatively in obscurity, and it took people 100 years to appreciate his music. It was Felix Mendelssohn who did this in the 1840s or 50s or so. That looked back at his stuff, but the reason it kind of died was it was old fuddy-duddy music as far as the younger generation was concerned. It's like nobody listens to that stuff that JS was doing. Now his kids, he had 4 or 5 kids who were all considered great composers of the next era, but none of them wrote any of the kind of stuff he did. And the reason the Baroque style died, which was heavy on counterpoint, meaning multiple melodies being played at the same time, as opposed to da 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 da. In Baroque music, you hear this kind of thing, right? The bass part by itself is a separate melody from this, and that's just a simple example. But Bach really just perfected this whole thing that everybody figured there is no you cannot do any better than he ever did with this. So nobody ever tried writing Baroque music again until the 20th century when Shostakovich picked it up a little bit, and when real appreciation for Bach came around. But anyway, so yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, now he's considered the greatest composer in history, but when he died, he was just considered like some old fart that nobody cared about.
And his music was primarily composed for what instrument?
All kinds of stuff. He wrote stuff for the lute, the guitar. The guitar and the piano didn't really hadn't evolved yet. So the ancestors for those would have been the harpsichord and other and organ. So we wrote a lot of keyboard stuff that people nowadays play on the piano, and a lot of lute stuff that people play on the guitar. The lute was kind of an ancestor of the guitar that had more strings, and it had gotten very, very complicated by the time Bach died. I have a Baroque lute that has 26 strings on it, and it's just this monster. Someday I'll have it here and show it to you when we're in a lesson, but it's down buried in the basement right now. But I played a lot. So the lute kind of evolved from the Renaissance into the Baroque time, and over years they kept adding more and more strings to it. But it started off as a fairly simple instrument, like people would just strum chords and sing with it, the way folk guitar was or something, But
And at what point, this is gonna be my last question on this subject.
okay,
At
maybe.
what point in this did the layout of the keyboard of the piano become what we know today?
That um, that was really early. I mean, that they had the early keyboards were called virginals, and they were around in Shakespeare's time. And well, even way before. In the 1400s, keyboards started. I'm not really sure how they evolved as much,
Uh,
but what did happen was how to tune them. As Western music was evolving, I guess. They settled on breaking an octave into 12 parts, into 12 half steps, and an octave is a physical phenomenon. It's two notes that are multiples of the frequency of each other. Now, whether they couldn't be measuring this back in the 1200s, 1300s, but they knew there's something about if I do this note, ba ba, and those two notes, it's like, man, those go together,
yeah,
like cookies and milk,
yeah,
so, and but they started. I think in the early days they started basing melodies on shorter scales, ba 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 da da da, like five notes, a pentatonic scale, because all those notes kind of sound good together. You
uh,
know? But somewhere down the line, in order to this octave got broken up into 12 half steps that were not always equal until Bach's day. Now so this gets really complicated, probably further than we need to go into this. But
yeah.
but Western music is based on breaking an octave into 12 equal parts. That's why we have 12 frets on the guitar in our octave, and there's 12 keys on the piano that
Yeah.
in there. But why B and C became labeled a half step and E and F became a half step, and there's a lot of it's not like somebody sat down and invented this, right? This evolved over centuries.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of the beneficiaries, or we're subject to what the gods decided.
But it happens to work out um,
Right.
from
Yeah.
a sonic or an acoustic standpoint. It works out.
Yeah, yeah, and it really has to do with. I can't go. I'll just keep rambling on about this. We'll save it for another day. But
Okay.
you could read up on this even like in Wikipedia. Might find some good articles about the evolution of Western music and
Yeah.
um, so to finish the modal story. Um, Basically, if we relate things to the key of C, where I've got the seven chords, the seven notes that make up the scale, and then I've got the seven triads that fit in there: D minor, E minor, A
Yeah.
minor, and the three majors. Um, the other common mode, other than Mixolydian, the Mixolydian mode is based on step 5 of our major scale.
Okay.
So you could play in the key of A Mixolydian just by figuring out what major key A is step 5 of, and
Okay.
then that would be the key signature for A mixolydian. So, and that's so it turns out that mixolydian has one less sharp than its own major key. We know that G major has one sharp.
Yeah.
G mixolydian has no sharps.
Right. Okay.
So A major has three sharps. That means A mixolydian would only have two. It would be the key signature from the key of D, D major. So you could play any song in the mixolydian mode. It doesn't have to be based on C major. I mean, so every major scale, as you know, every major key has a relative minor key.
Right.
It also has a relative mixolydian key
Okay. Okay.
based on step 5 of that.
Okay.
Then it has a relative Dorian key, which is based on step 2. So the
Okay.
Dorian scale is based on D. D to D, which is note 2 in our C scale.
Uh-huh.
D to D with no sharps and flats is a Dorian scale. And
Okay.
a quick example of a song, I did an open mic with my campers just the other day, and one of them played a Country Joe and the Fish song that is only got two chords in it. It was called "Save the Whales." It's C and D minor. It's only a C and a D minor chord back and forth. Which, if it were in the key of C, that'd be chord 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But what happens is D minor is home. It goes do 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 do.
Yeah.
That's Dorian. That's what a Dorian sound is. It sounds like an old sea chanty, which that one specifically is.
Yeah.
But you could hear that D minor was home, and all that was in there was D minor and C. There's another song, another cool Gordon Lightfoot song that also has this sea shanty idea that uses D minor and all three major chords, C, F, and G, but it always comes home to D minor. It's called Ghosts of Cape Horn.
Or
Which one?
what? Which one is it?
The one I'm thinking of is called Ghosts of Cape Horn.
Oh, good. Okay.
But I don't know if you know it. It's a little obscure album, but maybe not obscure. But it was after Endless Wire. What was that album called? Can't remember. But it goes like this: all around good Cape Horn, ships of the line, ships of the morn. Some who wish they'd never been born. They are the ghosts of Cape Horn. So a very similar sound to what you just heard in that Country Joe song.
Yeah. 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 Did Country Joe know he was doing a Dorian song when he did that?
Um, I don't know. He knew it sounded like a sea chanty, at least, because it even has lyrics about that. I mean, it sounds like a pirate song, or something, as does
Right.
that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the typical Dorian sound.
Okay.
Um, and I think the Country Joe song was only, I think it was more like an old traditional song that he might have rewritten some lyrics to or something, because even the chorus goes, it's got this fi-de-rol, riddle-dee rum dum dum kind of thing, and then early in the morning kind of
Yeah.
pirate slang, kind of stuff. So anyway,
Okay.
okay, did you get all that?
Yeah, actually I did. Yeah, that's the mode thing. I do get that now that we talk about having examples of it. Yeah. Um, so back to Angel from Montgomery and Bonnie Raitt version.
Yeah. So
So
go ahead. Ask. You talk first.
no, I just like to. I
Okay.
thought I might want to pursue that.
Okay. Great. So if we're in drop D,
Yeah.
um, the advantage to drop D, now we're playing the song in the key of D, is you've got this big fat bass note for the D chord. It makes D like this really rich chord by having the low D in the bass.
Right.
But it makes fingering for some other chords. You have to change the fingering for certain chords.
Yep.
Any chord that you had the bass note on the sixth string has to be altered. Now, in the key of D, there really only are two common chords that use the sixth string as the bass. What are they?
That use the sixth string as a bass
Yeah,
in the key of D.
yeah.
in the key of D. Well, that would be G,
right?
and well, G and F sharp.
Well, what kind of so F sharp? That wouldn't be the most common, but the close E minor would be the other one. That would be
Oh,
more
yeah,
common
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah,
use in there, right? But that's like the only three notes we have on the sixth string under normal conditions. Is having um, the E and the F sharp and the G, and then once you get to A, all the bass notes are higher, right?
right, right.
So so there are a couple different ways of playing a G chord. If you're in drop D, go ahead, get there.
Right. Here is good.
Um, Let me see. Let me look at this real quick. What's okay? So if you just had to, yeah, like I think we use that G chord in something, right?
We just did Neil Young.
Oh yeah, yeah, Harvest
Oh,
Moon.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so so the adjustment we have to make on the sixth string for any normal chord is play that bass note 2 frets higher
right.
than we did. So we go to E minor, just by making sure we play the second fret of the sixth string.
Yeah,
And in the case of Harvest Moon, we actually were fine with E minor 7, so we can leave the fourth string open.
yeah,
Is what we chose to do there.
yeah,
Yeah. So what Bonnie does in Angel from Montgomery is instead of going to the G in the bass, she uses a different bass note for the chord. What note could we have on the fifth string that would be a bass note for a G chord?
it would be a bass note for a G chord.
Or that is in the G chord?
Oh, that's in the G chord. Um, oh, B.
Right. So what she does, and you can clearly hear this in her, is we could play a G chord, especially coming from D. It could just be G with B in the bass, like this, where I go get the B with my first finger, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, on the fifth string.
on the fifth string. Right.
Right. Yeah. Now, right there, you actually have a note in there that isn't normally in a G chord. If you just do that, what else do you have that you kind of created there?
We'll see. I have G, B, and A.
Not quite. Oh wait. Oh, okay. Oh, you do have an A on there. You've got your so yeah. So we don't want that A in there. We want that string to be open.
Okay.
Right. But we also have another open string that's not a normal part of a G chord, the way you're playing it.
The E.
Right. What would we call a G chord that had E in it?
See, I believe let's see, we did this once before. G6.
Yeah. So E would turn a G into a 6, okay? But so if we don't want that E in there, all we have to do is put a G on above it, a high G.
Right.
Yeah. That's what she does. She hammers on the B, but when the B goes on in the bass, she adds a high G up there too, so it's not a G6 chord.
Okay.
And so getting there from a D chord is really easy because you just keep the D on and then add the high G with your little finger,
Yeah.
and then the B in the bass with your first finger. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Oh, you still need the high G on there. Your little up here.
here.
Yeah. Yeah, so your second finger doesn't need to be anywhere. Right. Yeah. So that's pretty much the progression she does back and forth. And she does this with that rhythm of changing chords changing to the G chord on beat 4. We hear 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so
Something like this. And I don't remember, I'd have to listen to it, which maybe we'll do in a second. If when she sings, she might not do that. She might make the change regular, but she uses that little rhythmic, characteristic as the vamp kind of in the song.
okay, so she's going from D,
Right?
right?
And using the low D in the bass. So make sure on that D chord you hit all 6 strings.
The whole deal.
Yeah.
And then on 4, she's going to.
Right. And then resting on 1, letting 4 carry over
Yeah.
for 2 beats.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Is that.
That's pretty close. You know what? Let me listen to it again one more time here, or let me get her up here.
Okay.
Yeah, do you hear that? So she's definitely capable. So she's a whole step higher than where we are. But you can hear that chord change happen. You're hearing that on 4. Let me get that going again and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
I am an old woman.
And see, it doesn't happen here because she's singing.
Named after my mother.
So the changes are square now.
My old man
Let's see if she does the measure of 3 here.
Child that's grown old. Your dreams were thunder.
Okay, so she squared it up. She did the change after 3 beats.
Okay.
In this case it's A to D because she's going to chord 5.
Yeah.
But she kept the same rhythm that she was using in the intro and did not have a measure of 3 beats in there.
Okay.
Let me back it up again and did you hear that kind of?
Yeah.
Named after my mother.
2, 3, 4.
My old man is another child that's grown old. Your dreams were thunder and lightning was desire. This old house would have burnt down a long time ago. Make me an angel.
So this is going to be the same thing. This would be D to C to G.
Montgomery, make me a poster of an old rodeo.
There was the jump again. The
Just
second
give me
line.
one thing that I can hold on to.
So this would be the same thing, not 3 beats.
Believing is living is
Right
just a hard way to go.
Oh, she didn't even jump that one. So here's a live version, because what we didn't hear very well in there, the guitar wasn't doing very much. The bass was really prominent,
Yeah.
but now when she's playing it live, I just went to a live one, and we do kind of hear this hammer-on effect. I was wrong when I said a minute ago. She doesn't hammer on the bass. We kind of hear a hammer on the high note.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And I was thinking, that's how it would work in the bass. But I didn't hear her doing that right there. Oh, the hammer-on's early. It's before the bass note. Before she hits the bass, so she's getting that high note happening just before beat 4.
Okay.
And that's completely organic. Like, she didn't plan this out. It's just how her hand changed to that chord, and it made that hammer-on. Like, see, I tried to do it with the hammer-on late a minute ago. I did this. That's not what she's doing. So do you hear what I'm doing there? I strummed this chord here, and then this was after the bass note change, after beat 4.
Yeah.
But she's getting it down before beat 4. Do that slower. So anyway, that's just... Do it again.
So...
So it would be right on, you would do it right after the down on beat 3. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So the hammer-on happens on the and of 3 before the bass note gets hit on 4.
Okay, so...
Yeah. But don't strum it up there. Like, just let the hammer-on happen by itself. Don't hit it. Yeah, and then try to hit the bass note a little more. Aim for just the bass on beat 4, so that you don't re-strum that note you just hammered. Close, yeah. Yeah. Not hearing the hammer-on quite clean enough. The hammer-on has to be a little more distinct. There.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
I see what we're trying to do, but I
Yeah.
do see what we're trying to do here. Yeah. So on that, when we go up to the B, that is the bass note. We're not.
Right, you don't want to hear the low D anymore.
You want to hear the low D. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So really, the only chance you get to hear that D is on the first big strum. On beat 1, that's when you can hit all 6, and then you're pretty much done with the 6th string.
Okay.
For those 2 measures now.
Okay.
That was better.
Huh?
That was better, the last one. Yeah.
Okay. Wrong one.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me listen to her one more time, because she actually might... I have a feeling she's finger-picking this and not strumming it.
Oh.
Yeah. that's what I thought. So she's more doing this with fingers. She usually plays with a thumb pick on, and doing like more grabbing that first chord, and then a little bit strumming. So she's, it's a little more free form what she's doing with her right hand. But I think we're better off starting this off strumming it like this, and
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I can feel the rhythm. Okay, but then, okay, so then the change. Okay, then when we get to the chorus, then we're
yeah, let me watch her do that once and see what she does.
Child is grown old. If true man is another, child is grown old.
So the one thing she did there, when she went to the A chord, she kept these two high notes on from the G chord. Child is another. So the A, it ended up being an A with still these two notes at the third fret from the G chord. Go to your G.
okay.
Right. And then all she does to get to the A chord is moves her first finger to the fourth string. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what she's using as chord 5 in here rather than any other kind of A.
Okay.
I'll let you figure out what we're going to have to call this chord. Okay? Later. I mean, you can figure it out, okay? That'll be one of your puzzles.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So, like that question.
If dreams were thunder and lightning was desire, this old house would have burnt down a long time ago. Make me an angel that flies from Montgomery. Make me a poster of an old rodeo. Just give me one thing I can hold on to believe in this living is just a hard way.
So actually, modify that just a little bit. When she goes to the A, she flattens this out.
Okay.
Fingers across two notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the chorus, all she's doing is just going from her D to a regular C, and then plays the G like this. She doesn't go to the fuller G like we just talked about. She just uses the same G she'd been using in the other part. Yeah. Right? So that part, so we have this. Make me an angel that flies from Montgomery. Make me a poster of an old rodeo. And there was that chord change on beat 4. Right?
Yeah.
Same thing. Just give me one thing that I can hold on to. And now to believe in this living is just a hard way to go. You know what? And actually, as I'm strumming that, I'm thinking it doesn't really. Once you've gotten to that B in the bass, it's okay to still hear the low D behind it because it's in the G chord anyway. It's the 5th of the chord.
Right.
We kind of have this constant droning sound, this pedal point, where we're hearing D in the bass really over both of those chords, even once she's gone to the B in the bass for the G chord. Because even if she just hit it back at the beginning of the first measure, it's going to keep ringing anyway. It's like she's not going to the trouble to cut off the D.
Right.
When she plays so really if you just get the D strong on the first D chord, it's totally fine for it to still be ringing over that G chord.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I got lots to work on here. That's
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm glad this song. Glad it grabbed you because it's really cool.
Yeah. This is sort of intriguing. I like this. Fun. Okay. Well,
And you know, you probably could sing it in this key. I mean, I was just singing it right there, and it seemed like it was a good
yeah.
key, you know, to
Okay.
put it in. Whether you capo it or not, probably unnecessary. But you know, if it at least it's you should at least practice playing along with her. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Good. All right, you on for next week?
Yeah, I believe the next week is just a regular week here. I think I'm here. Yeah, I'm sure we're here.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
So